Even after almost 10 years of playing Fallout 4, survival mode can still feel challenging and exciting, and the 8 mods in this list will certainly help you to add more danger and suspense in your Fallout 4 survival playthroughs. Make sure to check out mods number 6 and 7 on this list, as they are amongst my own personal favorites. Hi, I'm Mo and I'm trapped in Fallout. The first mod we are going to check out is Polluted Climate by Mandragora Sprouts. In this first mod, this simply turns the somewhat vibrant colors of Fallout 4 into a more dull and harsh look, making it feel a little bit more unforgiving. The mod also increases the chance of both dusty and foggy weather conditions, as well as causing more radiation storms, which will happen much more frequently. In addition to these weather conditions, when you do encounter them, they will actually deal significantly more damage than the traditional radiation storms that you see. Now, do note there is a slight warning on this mod. This one is unlikely to work with other weather-based mods in Fallout 4, but this one is certainly worth having due to how quickly it can just simply change the look and feel of the game. The second mod we are going to look at is Campsite by Fading Signal, and this is perhaps one of the best mods to combine with our first mod, the Polluted Climate. In this mod, you can generate your own camping gear, and you can do this by going to the chemistry station, selecting camping gear, and from here you have a number of options of different things that you can craft with, for example, a cooking pot, or a bed for your dog, or including a bed for yourself. So what we'll do is just craft some general camp gear for us. So let's generate a camping kit for a pole tent, maybe a fire kit, and let's also craft a cooking pot for ourselves. Once you do this, you will now need to find some flat land. So I'll find some flat land right over here. This should be good enough. If you now go into your missed items in your inventory and simply drop the items, you will see that they will actually, for the most part anyway, form a campsite for you. And right over here, you can now use this campsite to go to sleep or do other things such as just move it around, anything that suits your need. So let's just say do nothing for now. Now again, more importantly, as said, you can actually go to sleep. So you can just go here, go to sleep, and go to sleep for however long you want. Now naturally, this is actually a really good thing to do when playing on survival mode. On survival mode, one of the few things that's taken away from you is your ability to save the game whenever you want. With this mod, you can now effectively set up bed anywhere in the Commonwealth, allowing you to save your game whenever you want, and gives it a little bit more of a realistic feel given that you are playing on survival mode. The next mod we are going to look at is the Pip-Boy Flashlight by Acolyte85. This mod simply turns your Pip-Boy into a directional light. In other words, more into a flashlight. When installing this mod, you can define what the light looks like, how much distance it should cover, the retinal effect, and so on. It's a very simple mod that again works very well with the Polluted Climate mod, and it also works well with the other mods that we'll be looking at this list. It's a light mod, no pun intended, and it's definitely worth getting and adds a level of immersion to the game. The next mod we're going to look at is the Monorail to Spectacle Island by Critical Guy. This is again a really simple mod, and it especially helps on survival mode given all the other things that we're looking at. When traveling to Spectacle Island, so right now I happen to be at the castle. Spectacle Island is due east of the castle, and to get to it there really isn't any other way. You have to cross a large body of water, and whether you're playing on non-survival mode or survival mode, you tend to take a lot of damage, or whatever means you want to use to try and reduce it, either way you will end up taking some damage. This is a interesting mod to have. So what you can do is from the castle, if you just install this mod and travel rather south, you will see that you have a monorail right over here, and you don't really need anything to operate it. You just sort of go close to it, push the button, open it, and if you go all the way to the very end of this monorail and push this button right over here, this will activate the monorail, and this will simply take you to Spectacle Island. Now, something to note is that you will need to have the Nuka World DLC installed to actually use this mod. This is one of the, or rather the only requirement to actually getting this mod to work. So we'll just give it a moment, and we'll let this take us all the way to Spectacle Island. So I'll see you in just a moment. We're almost there. So let's just get off at the platform, which should be arriving rather shortly. And with that done, we have now made it to Spectacle Island, all the way from the castle. So this is a rather convenient mode to have. Again, it doesn't break immersion, it doesn't break the game in any way, and it doesn't really feel like you are taking, let's just say, a big shortcut or anything like that. It is always a mission to get to Spectacle Island. So this mod certainly will help in that endeavor, as well as helping you to survive this particular body of water in survival mode. And if you made it this far into the video, then please do consider liking this video. I really enjoy reading and replying to as many comments as I can, so please do consider leaving a comment telling me about any other particular mod that you definitely install to enhance your Fallout 4 survival playthroughs. Next, we're going to take a look at another mod called K9 Harness by Fading Signal again. Playing on survival mode has a few impacts in game, and one of those impacts is your carry weight being reduced. Typically this is okay, but when you consider the fact that you will need to carry more aid items and your ammo starts to weigh you down, carry capacity suddenly becomes quite important, especially playing on survival mode. And this is where this mod will actually come in very handy. If you open a chem station and you go all the way down to utility and then look at this K9 harness, you will notice that you can create this body armor for Dogmeat. If you now give Dogmeat this body armor, so let's quickly locate Dogmeat, and once you equip it, you will notice that Dogmeat actually has this really cool looking body armor. Now the really cool thing about this particular armor is, let's quickly take it off him, we can actually customize it as well. So if you take the armor and then take it to an armor workbench right over here, you will notice that you can actually add patches to this to give it a little bit more of a custom feel. For example, you can change the color, or you can add certain, say, faction affiliation, but more importantly, you can actually add pouches to this as well. You can either add side pouches or you can add side and pack pouches, and when doing so, this adds the attribute of plus 80 carry weight to this body armor, which means once you actually add it to this body armor and then give it to Dogmeat as a result will now be able to carry an additional 80 pounds of carry weight for you. Now the really cool thing about this particular mod is that this also works very well with the Lone Wanderer perk. Now if you're not aware, when you take the Lone Wanderer perk, if you happen to be traveling with a companion, then its effects basically don't take effect on you anymore. So if I quickly go to the Lone Wanderer perk, if you happen to be traveling with a companion, you lose the benefits of this perk, i.e. you lose the carry weight increase and the less damage taken. However, Dogmeat in Fallout 4 does not count as a companion. So if you have this mod and combine this with the Lone Wanderer perk, you will effectively increasing the amount of items you can carry due to the compounding effects of both this mod and the perk. The next mod we're going to look at is Subway Runner by Ghost FC3S. In Fallout 4, there are a number of metro tunnels, but sadly they don't really connect to each other. So if you've played Fallout 3, you know exactly what I'm talking about. In Fallout 3, you have a number of metro tunnels and they all connect to each other underground. In other words, you don't need to rely on the servers to get from one place to another. You can actually use the tunnels underground to go from one place to another place. Now in Fallout 4, there are again a number of tunnels which are typically blocked when you sort of travel in them by fallen debris or broken down trains. However, this mod tries to breach that gap. So typically when you get to an area like this, you will have like a broken down train on one side of the tunnel or a lot of debris like here on one side. But this mod totally replaces all of that and ends up adding these things, these abandoned subway intersections. And if you go into this abandoned section, what this will do is add a whole new tunnel or a whole new section to this tunnel. And when you get to the very end of it, that will actually end up connecting to another part of a tunnel in the game. In other words, this mod actually creates a whole ecosystem of tunnels underground. So let's try going into one of these places right now. Now when you do that, do be warned, although these tunnels do connect, they're actually not empty. They are usually quite heavily populated by enemies of all sorts, typically something like ghouls or zombies or super mutants. So this particular tunnel happens to be filled with ghouls in this instance. So again, I'll just carry on traveling a little bit. Now as you travel through these tunnels, you will find that at times they will be rather empty, which actually adds to this whole illusion of the tunnels being sort of here and present. Again, previously without the mod, these tunnels didn't really exist, but with the mod, it sort of adds this whole new layer of experiencing or rather exploring the undergrounds or the bowels of Fallout 4. tunnels themselves actually do feel a little bit claustrophobic as well. You'll find yourselves at time just sort of endlessly opening doors, following all the way through to the very end. Now, the tunnel themselves, as said, can be filled with ghouls, but they can also be filled with things like super mutants, synths, and I'll leave the rest to you to be a little bit more surprised. Now, once I do find the end to this tunnel eventually, this will basically take me to another part of a map. The map itself can actually be seen here, so you should be able to see it on the screen right now. So you can see that this one mod does add a whole new ecosystem to the underground of Fallout 4. Now let's talk about one of my other favorite mods, Zombie Walkers by Jofer. Let's talk about the dangers on the surface. Something that's always bugged me about Fallout 4 is the lack of enemies on the surface, in particular ghouls. Yes, there are plenty around, but at the same time, the bombs fell and you would think that the majority of people would have been whisked away or turned into ghouls. With this mod, you will now find that these ghouls actually act a lot more like zombies. In fact, it turns every single ghoul in Fallout 4 into zombies, and it spawns plenty of them. They will stop sprinting and they will become somewhat of bullet sponges, and as you find more and more of these, you will find that their appearance also appears to be different, slightly different to the traditional ghouls that you see. When combining this with mods such as the Pip-Boy Flashlight or the Polluted Climate or Campsite, it actually adds a whole new flavor to the term survival in Fallout 4. It doesn't necessarily turn Fallout 4 into a zombie apocalyptic game, nothing like that, but it just adds another level of enemies for you to be aware of, given that they won't just attack you in the sense that they'll sprint at you, but there will be a lot more of them, and it does make the game feel a little bit more harsh and a little bit more unforgiving. And the last mod we're going to look on this list is the APC Transporter by Lone Raptor. I know playing on survival mode you have a number of things working against you, but one of the few things that really didn't make much sense to me is the idea of fast traveling. So if you go onto the map, I'm sure everyone knows this, you can fast travel to all these different locations. But for whatever reason, when you play on survival mode, this particular feature is disabled. Now, disabling this does certainly add a level of difficulty, but at the same time, it doesn't really make much sense having that feature disabled in survival mode, or it didn't also make much sense having it enabled in non-survival mode, because it doesn't make much sense for you to fast travel from place to place magically without no means of actually transporting yourself to that location. You just sort of automatically assume that you just magically or you walked there over time and then time basically passed. Well, with this mod, you can actually add a little bit more, let's just say, realism to that endeavor. You unlock this APC, which is right outside Red Rocket. With this mod, what you can do is, first of all, let's open the tailgate, and as a result, when you go inside, you will find that this is somewhat of a small portable house, and I'll show you that in a moment. The first thing you want to do is activate this node, and as you do that, a scavenger should spawn right next to it. And what you'll need to do is take this scavenger out. Once you've taken the scavenger out, on him you will find an APC key, and you will also find one nuclear material. We'll need that in a moment. Once you've done that, if you now go back to this APC and go into this fuel storage and place that nuclear material, if you now go to the front of the APC and select the drive, given that you have the key now, you can now use this APC to fast travel to any location that you've already discovered. So I will just go to Grey Garden, for example. Now, the really cool thing about this mod is that given that I've traveled to Grey Garden, if I now try to travel, say, somewhere else, so I will go again to the front, and let's just say I want to go somewhere like Finch Farm. Notice that this is saying that the APC is out of fuel. In other words, I can't just endlessly use this to fast travel from place to place. I will have to stock up on nuclear material specifically and put it in this fuel storage to actually use this vehicle. Now, this actually adds a little bit of balance in the game. First of all, finding nuclear material isn't exactly common compared to, say, other items like certain ammo or certain aid items like steam packs. This is actually a pretty rare item to find in the game. So using this for that reason balances it. The other balancing element of this particular mod is that you can't fast travel to locations that you haven't discovered. You can only fast travel to locations that you have discovered. And lastly, the other cool thing, as I sort of mentioned, is the fact that you can use this as a portable house. So you do have certain storage such as this, and you've got other sort of things around you. For example, you can store items in the mirror, camera, or you have certain artillery shells and so on, using it as a mobile base as some sort. But the really cool thing is that you can use it as a sort of portable home, but more importantly to fast travel, but in a balanced way, something that makes sense. In this guide, I went through 8 mods that I think will enhance your survival playthrough in Fallout 4 and make the game a little bit more interesting to play. That said, if you're instead more interested in quality of life mods, then click on the video you see on the screen right now. Click on the video you see on the screen right now and I will show you 7 mods that always enhance the quality lifestyle of Fallout 4, especially when I'm playing.